Today, I have with me somebody who's going to share her personal journey, and I think you're going to find it very inspirational. And then also her current practices in life that help her to stay grounded, help her to stay healthy. We're going to talk about longevity, all things health and wellness. But let me introduce you to Tessa Arnold. She is the co founder and COO of Snapback Energy. She has a 12-year background in global banking and was the vice president of commercial banking for JP Morgan for 10 years. The creation of Snapback Energy began when Tessa was with her late husband, Michael Arnold. When her husband fell ill, she took on a more significant role in the company. Tessa realized she needed to take better care of herself because throughout this, she was suffering from some crippling anxiety due to her husband's health complications. With the passing of her late husband, Tessa decided to bring her husband's dream for Snapback Energy to life. She also improved the quality of her own life by becoming a certified yoga instructor, an aerial yoga instructor just recently, and an Ayurvedic health coach. Tessa now uses these principles to help her clients improve their lives. Tessa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Carol. It's just thrilling to be here and to share this with you and all of that information. Goodness, when you say it, it sounds like a lot, and but it's been a wonderful, hard journey, and I'm excited to share with everybody. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on. I find that most of us, I wouldn't say all, but most of us in the health, wellness, personal training, nutrition, whatever field we're in, we have our own personal story of how we got here. I mean, for me, being burned out in my 40s, trying to do all the things with three kids, no
Mhm.
self care,
Right.
diagnosis of autoimmune, and,
Mhm.
and so we have this personal journey. Can you describe how you got here and tell us a little bit about that journey?
Absolutely. And I think, what you mentioned is spot on. I think the first thing in our lives when we start to get busy just living, the first thing that we let go and we don't necessarily, even become aware of it is our own self care, right? We're in the process of giving to others and being identifying with all these different roles, right? Whether that be mother or that be father. So parents, in our role with our employers. So whatever our employment situation looks like, with our friends, with our families, sisters, brothers, whatever it may look, we identify with so many things, but we are human nevertheless. And we do have things that we need to do for ourselves. And I think for me, part of the journey, and I think a lot of people would relate to this. You start living, and I'm married, I have small children, I'm doing all the things from the outside looking in. My life looks, pretty incredible. I'm doing really well at work and I'm firing off on all cylinders, but I was losing myself in the process, and I didn't even know it, if you will. I was sort of sleepwalking through life, and it was a lot of beautiful experiences through that journey, but a lot of hardships too. So in the process of my husband working through some things and then our marriage, really having to take a step back and reflect on that, and actually going through a divorce as well and still supporting him, and then losing him. Was a very challenging journey. And even prior to that, having suffered quite a bit of loss in my life through my father and my brother when I was younger at different, uh, exactly 12 years in between each other in accidents. You're taking these things in and these experiences in, and it's difficult, and you're just trying to calibrate and make sure that you can put one foot in front of the other, but you never really sit back and reflect on what do I need. Well, how do I care for myself properly so that I can be all of these things to all of these other people. Right? We just don't think about that. We're just going out there and doing the things on autopilot, and then before we know it, we get burned out or something happens. And that's just what happened to me. I was neglecting myself to such a point where I lost myself within myself. And I was just this embodiment, and I couldn't have even told you where I was in it. When I looked in the mirror, it was so far from the me that I knew that I didn't know if I could find my way back or how to do that. And I think anybody who's listening, if you're in that situation, please know we've been there, and I've been there with you. I've sat in the bathroom and I've cried and just feeling very, very lost. We've all done that, in a closet, in a bathroom, in the bathroom at work, whatever it might be, and not knowing what the feeling is, but having the feeling. Don't be afraid of that. Allow it to pass through, honor that feeling. And then when you do have a moment of reflection, sit with yourself and say, what do I need to change? What do I want this to look like? What am I missing here? What's feeling so uncomfortable? And then start to work with that, small steps. And that's what I did. But it did take, right? It takes that breakdown to get a breakthrough. And everything had to fall apart pretty much. And then anxiety, the crippling anxiety. I was on planes going to client meetings, and it was literally telling myself to pull it together, because I'd had stress in my neck and my shoulders. My neck was so tight, I couldn't even hold it up properly. All on my back, I wasn't sleeping well. My nutrition was off. My GI tract was off. Everything was off. But I'm not really accounting. I'm just like, stress, 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 and I'm just letting it go. And I'm aging myself in the process. And I would go into a meeting and I just, wow everybody in the meeting. I get back on the plane and I just fall apart. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't keep this going like this. And I said to myself, what's going to happen is I'm going to start to stop giving 110%, and people are going to be let down. And I can't just let that happen. So I pulled the plug and I took some time off, and I said, I need to figure out what I needed to do. And I started to do some hard looking, and reflecting on how I was taking care of myself there.
So you were in the corporate
I
world,
was, yes,
and then you moved into more of the
I did.
health. Was there a crossover where you were, helping your
Mhm.
husband with the company and then also still in the corporate world?
Yes, absolutely. So I was helping him more from a partnership perspective and supporting him. And he asked me to come on board to a more significant role and actually, assist him with getting this product off the ground with our core family, who are now the owners of the company and who I refer to very much when I talk about Snapback. And it wasn't even Snapback at that point. It was an idea. And I was like, okay, so I'll support you getting this out. And then I came on board and we developed Snapback together with the intention of it being a supplement. And I didn't know at that point that it was going to be such a supplement, that it would truly be a supplement that would help you balance your life in such a beautiful way, that it would support your liver, it would support your body, it would support you in a way that you could do all of the things and also find fulfillment too. And I'll talk about that in a moment, but you're exactly right. I was in the corporate world still. And I'll tell you, I continued on with that because letting that safety net go was terrifying. And I'm like, oh, I can do all the things. I can. And his health was waning and he couldn't be an active part in the company, but we got the company launched and I had some solid input into how it was going to look. I said, well, we have this patented formula. This is just not for that application, but this is a total wellness supplement. And that's how it came out into the marketplace as, because that's truly what it is. It's a beautiful complement to life, and it continued to expand as I started to incorporate that in my life, right? Because I said there's more of a need for this balance. There's more of a need for this self-reflection, and there's more of a need for understanding our bodies better so they can love us back. But I'll tell you, I continued on with both roles for a period of time that it got so uncomfortable because I was denying myself what I needed to do because I was scared and I was afraid. And I'd say to anybody listening, that's a total normal reaction, right? Fear. There's always going to be some fear in the face of change, challenges, adversity, or anything that's uncomfortable. But it's leaning into that fear with the faith of knowing that this is what you really should be doing that's going to get you from point A to point B. You've got to take that fear along with you and have enough courage to step into it, step into the unknown. And that's where incredible breakthroughs happen. And when you start to do that, you start to make shifts, really a quantum shift, because you believe in yourself and you believe in an idea and you believe that you're capable of really getting this from point A to point B, and you do. But I carried on with the bank almost to the point where I was uncomfortable because I couldn't balance it all. And I did that to myself. And I finally had, over a 6-month period, built up enough courage and had Snapback going enough that I was like, okay, I have to shift. Because if I don't, I'm just denying, what is going to be inevitable. And I'm not putting my full focus on something that I believe in so much. And that's too uncomfortable for me. So I told the bank that I was leaving, and they countered and they said, stay with us for a little bit longer. And I loved my team so much. And I did love what I did very much, but I knew that I had a calling that I had to answer. And I did. I stayed with them, of course, for a little bit longer. And it was actually this past January. And Snapback has been on the market for a little bit of time, at least the year before that I left the bank and went full time into Snapback. And funny enough, you close one door in a chapter, a beautiful chapter within your story, and so many other are going to present
Yes.
themselves. You have to clear the way. And as you mentioned, that I went on to all of these other things, which have such beautiful synergies with Snapback and that embodiment of what a healthy, balanced, full lifestyle will look like.
I love that you touch on this because there has to be that authenticity within us.
Mm.
And in order to reach that authentic level, that authenticity, things have to be, I mean, for lack of a better word, in sync. And sometimes if we're trying to do too many things, one is in conflict with the other, such as the corporate world not really being, syncing with this health and wellness journey and this other company that you started. So I love that you hit on that. I often say, and this is obviously not my saying, but I'll say to clients, if we say yes to something, just understanding we're saying no to something
Right.
else. And you hit on that. You were saying yes to this corporate job. When you said no, other doors started to open, which is so important. Now this product, it gives liver support, which is that is an interest of mine because I don't think people understand
Mm.
sometimes how, I mean, obviously we know we need our liver and we know of toxic medicines, alcohol, things that affect it. But I mean, everything from poor nutrition to lifestyle, our liver is really a
Mhm.
main fat burning organ. So a
Yes.
lot of times when people can't lose weight, that's at the source of it. So how did this product come into being for, and is it focused mainly on the liver?
It is, and that's a beautiful segue to it because I think you're so right. We'll talk about everything else, but the liver, and the liver is the largest organ inside the body, and a great point of reference to it is it's the only organ, and that's really going to regenerate itself too. It's sort of magical in that sense. It helps support and or perform over 500 functions in the body. 500. It is a powerhouse organ that we don't talk about enough when we talk about really loving our body and taking care of it. And you touched on it itself. I mean, there's so many aspects of what goes into our bodies and how they function. So, the metabolism, the liver is going to help support a healthy metabolism. It's going to help support that immune support and vitamin efficiency. So, what you're taking in, it's going to help really boost up that immunity support. Detoxification. So, when you get into the liver, you're really detoxifying when you have a healthy liver that's in full function and really supporting you at its best. And then it supports with blood circulation and blood recirculation and cleansing. It's fantastic. So it's just think about the blood that's moving through your body and think about it purifying and going through the liver and how it's helping produce it and support it and move it. I mean, that's moving through your entire body. So with our product, we spent quite a bit of time, and it was not without challenges. But we have a patented 5 ingredient formula with a lot of the supplements that are in our marketplace can't share. They don't have that because I believed in this so much, and I believed in supporting. If you start with one of the largest organs in the body and you start to really love it, wow, see what's going to happen with all the rest. But that's a combination of stuff. It's not just a magic supplement, even though I like to say we're pretty close to magic, right? It's everything else that you're going to do. And I know we touched on that. But just going back to the formula, we introduced glutathione, which your liver produces naturally, but over time it's going to produce less and less, and that's just a normal occurrence. So we're adding in the glutathione, we're adding in the milk thistle, the prickly pear, the amino acids. Wow, like those are incredible, just ingredients that when you mix together, it's really loving on your liver quite a bit. And that's going to support you in many different aspects of your life, right? So that's going to support you in the balancing of just having that in the morning to give you an energy boost. There's no caffeine in it. There's very low sugar, so you're not going to get that glucose spike, right? So it's going to give you the energy boost. It's going to support your overall well being, specifically your liver when you wake up. It is vegan, it is gluten free, and it's kosher because we wanted to ensure that we could get this out to a lot of people who might have some dietary restrictions as well. and they could benefit from it as well. And we do have the grape and the orange flavor, and we are working on a newer flavor too that we are obviously keeping our patented formula in. But I'm also, from an Ayurvedic perspective, looking at some really beautiful adaptogens and some greens too. So then we'll have sort of the trifecta: the grape, our flagship, our orange flavor, which I launched last year, and then the greens.
Wonderful. Yeah, that sounds amazing with being able to reach so many different
Right.
people, with having it in such a way, like you said, kosher and
Hmm.
being mindful of how people's diets vary, I think is really important because we're so
Right.
individual. Now with Ayurvedic medicine, so you branched out. So you have this company, you branched out. Why Ayurvedic? Why that route?
I love this. It's a great story too, and it's a fun story. And I will tell you, as we mentioned before, when you shut one door, other doors will open. And I believe that so much. And I'll tell people on the phone here, embrace that, right? Lean into it and just know if something doesn't work out for you, you have put yourself out there and you're showing, the universe, the energy, which is we're bodies of energy.
Mhm.
You're showing whomever that higher power might be that you are open and willing to this. And if it doesn't work out, that wasn't for you, but there is something else in store. So when I left the bank and put those wheels into motion, I said, well, that was terrifying. And I feel very courageous right now. And I'm going to treat myself to a retreat. I've never done anything like this. I'm going to go on a retreat and maybe we'll go out of the country and I'm not going to know a soul and I'm going to do it. And I did it. One of the most incredible experiences I've ever done for myself. And I continue to put myself out of my comfort zone ever since I made that decision that I would not live in a state of fear, right? And allow that to stop me from experiencing all the things that I wish to in life. I'll embrace it, take it with me, and I'll lean in. So I went on this beautiful Chopra retreat with Deepak Chopra and team, met some amazing people from all over the world. And there I was introduced to the Ayurvedic practice. And I thought it was very interesting. And I can tell you, I did not even go to the session about it. I ate the food. I thought that's really great. I didn't even go to the session. I love telling the story because it was like, yeah, I was like, that's very interesting. Maybe I'll read more about it. And I left and it kept showing up for me. For whatever reason, it stuck with me. And I'll tell you what, usually when I travel, I'll have difficulties finding the foods that, sit really well with me, that feel good, that are giving me energy because you're not at home and you don't have as much control. I felt amazing. I was like, I got home, my skin's glowing. I felt so just good in my skin. I wasn't bloated. I wasn't feeling heavy. I was feeling really just incredible. And I was like, wow, that Ayurvedic menu, really sat with me well and it felt really good. I wonder why, because I'm naturally curious by nature. So I did a little research and then I called the Chopra Center and I said, I didn't go to the class, but I'd love to take the certification. This makes too much sense to me. And when they said, we dove a little bit deeper into Ayurveda, which is broken down the science of life. And I said, wow, that just makes a lot of sense too. There is a science to life. There's a science to all things, and we're all interconnected. And it's a beautiful thing that connects us all. We're never truly alone. And I started to dig a little deeper and I was like, yeah, this makes just too much sense again. And it's a science and it's simple and I can understand it. And I started to input it into my life post this retreat. And I had never felt better. So good, in fact, and so light and energetic and happy, right? Because I think 70, I do think the measure is 70% of your serotonin is controlled and released by your gut, your second
Mhm.
brain.
Yeah,
Makes too
yeah.
much sense. I'm like, okay, so this just feels really good. I need to dive deeper. And I did. And I got certified as a health and lifestyle coach. And I started to embody it. And people would be like, what are you taking? What do you take? Because I want some of that. And you seem really good. And I'm like, yeah, I feel really good too. And then I was like, well, why not add in a yoga teacher training on top of this? And why not launch a business called Balance of You that does Ayurvedic coaching after I got certified? And then why not go take aerial yoga training? And I don't know what's next. We'll see. So,
It's hard not to do all the things. I know I'm working on a functional medicine certification
yes,
for health coaching right now. It's a lot. I mean,
it is.
it's a lot of extra, but I'm enjoying it, and I consider myself a lifelong learner. So I absolutely love that zest that you have. Let's dig into the Ayurvedic
Yes.
principles just a little bit. I had a coach on here. We actually knew each other from two masterminds we were in, a friend.
Hmm.
And so she kind of educated me on the doshas.
Yes.
You want to speak it, and it's
Yes.
funny. She talked about her experience of really not expecting to go down this path, and she went to a retreat, and someone said, "Oh, you're this dosha," and she was like,
Right.
"What's that?" So you want to talk about that a little bit because that can be a little bit confusing, the word dosha.
It does. So it's your composition. The doshas are beautiful things, and we can talk about that. So we'll talk about the Ayurvedic. So that is the science of life, and really it is governed. And what you look to break it down to is to six principles. But before you get into the six principles or six pillars, you really look to identify what your composition is, and it's the composition of you. So it's everything from think outside, inside. So it's the three: the subtle body, the main body, and going deeper into the levels. And you are at conception, you have all three. There's three doshas within you. And what can happen is that as you start to grow and at conception, you have either a primary dosha, which you resonate with, or you can be bidoshal. And that means you can show up on a higher scale with two of the three doshas. But again, remember, there's all three of us, all three of the doshas in there. The doshas, as we call them, so you can just think about them as sort of general compositions, or how your body functions and how you function within this body, are really based on elemental factors. So you can resonate more with the vata, which is going to be your air and space. And then we have the kapha, and then we have the pitta. So then you have earth and fire, and then you have earth and water. So it's a combination of those flowing together to really show how you present yourself in the world. And it's a who doesn't want to know themselves better? We all go through different stages in life, and you're like, I have no idea who I am. I'm learning who I am. I'm growing. Well, we're going to constantly evolve. And I tell everybody, you're not you 7 years later. You actually do a full cellular regeneration. So you don't have the same skin you had. You don't have the same taste buds. You actually do an entire reset every 7 years. But it's a beautiful thing to know what's staying constant, and that's your composition. The reason it's a gift to know your doshas, is to understand better how to balance yourself, and when you are imbalanced, what you can do to help regulate. So think about it as simply as nervous system, right? We have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So when we go into our nervous system, our sympathetic, which a lot of us do stay in most of the time, which is that kind of freeze, flight, fright, and sometimes people will say fight. You really get into that activation. It's a beautiful gift to know your dosha, so you can say, okay, I'm having an imbalance. I'm really in this sympathetic nervous system. I need to calm myself down. Well, based on knowing your dosha, you have tools that we walk through, whether it be colors, smells, sounds, food, breathing techniques that really resonate for you. And all of those things I mentioned, that's not anything new. Those are all things that are readily available to you, right? That I'll give you guides and just a structure around that you have in your kitchen that you can do right now sitting on your chair. And that's why I was like, this just makes too much sense. You mean that I can regulate my nervous system by taking some long breaths in a certain breathing practice within minutes and feel better? Yeah, you can. You mean I can do that before a meeting and really clear, my mind and focus more, not instead of having a cup of coffee or going for a run? I can do that practice when I just have a couple of meetings. Yeah, you really can. So when you understand your doshas and yourself a little bit better, it's a gift to be able to regulate. And we talk through that. And what we do is based on your doshas. So me in particular, I'm a vata, and I'm a very focused primary vata, and I know that. And it's a gift to understand that, because I know areas where they really can trouble me and imbalance me. And it's life. We have to go into those situations sometimes. And I know it could be difficult for me, but I can still go in because I know what tools and techniques to use to regulate myself. So it's really incredible when you have the ability to tap into yourself so acutely that you can regulate and not lose so much time to emotion, thought, or nervous system reactions.
Interesting. So you are born, you have your
Yes,
personality, your
yes,
dosha,
yes.
and that bioindividuality that we just talked about. So we're all different. I want to unpack a little bit because a lot of my listeners are perimenopausal, menopausal,
Hmm.
postmenopausal. So
Yes,
I would say 40 on up, and most being over 50.
yes.
How is this affected as we move? So, first, perimenopause, which to me
Mhm.
is a completely different thing than going through menopause, because perimenopause is that roller coaster. So, are the doshas changing? What is happening there in your experience?
Absolutely. So, from a hormonal perspective and regulation, there's some incredible benefits to understanding your dosha because you know how you feel when you are most regulated and you know those regulation techniques that you can utilize. So, yes, I definitely think that they are coming into play because it's understanding the dynamics of the chemistry of your body. So, it's understanding what's going on through that, evolutionary change that you're going through and those things that we all go through. But if you were somebody just a pitta, for instance, has that fiery quality to them. And I know in a lot of cases you can feel that your core temperature is lifting and lowering and lifting, and you're having what we would call hot flashes or something of that nature. So a cooling, if you are a pitta and you're coming into that, the heightened sensitivity to some of those changes in your body when you're going through that can intensify. Right. So just knowing your composition, you know that that quality of that change within your body could be a little bit more intense to say maybe a Vata who runs very cold anyway and is very sensitive to that heat change, but having that symptom wouldn't necessarily affect them as much. And that's a beautiful gift of understanding. And I say it's a gift because we're all going to go through these changes together. And the gift is that okay, this is already my composition. I'm prepared for this, but hey, I have some of the tools and the techniques that I know are going to come. For instance, cucumber. A lot of people don't realize in this, but cucumber, they do know it has a cooling quality. But to actually regulate and lower your core temperature, I have a client of mine who has ditched any kind of antacids for any kind of heartburn. She's ditched any kind of cooling pads, and she has cucumbers readily available. She puts it in her water. She was like, "Yeah, Tess, I just grabbed my cucumber," and after a while, she was like, "I feel so silly, but it's awesome." She was like, "And I'm getting my water intake," and I was like, "This, see, it's little things like that that was sometimes in life, mm, with so many things, we can feel so out of control, right? We feel like we don't necessarily have control. So it is gifts where we can just have a little bit more regulation and we understand things a little bit better. It makes life easier, and that's the intention here.
I love it. Yeah, perimenopause, like I said, being such a roller coaster.
Yes.
I did not have awareness during that period of time. I felt like I was just in this tailspin all the time. You know how it is, you have kids and you're
Right.
just running from one thing to the next to the next. And then nobody was talking about perimenopause. Nobody was talking about the hormones. I'm like, what is wrong with me? The mood swings, the hot flashes started.
Mhm.
So I love this, identifying your dosha, finding what
Yes.
works for you, finding that balance. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the yoga piece of this and how it fits in and why aerial yoga. I have to tell you, I have this little bit of a mental block on aerial yoga because I had a bad experience several years ago
No.
where I went to a free class with friends and it was like a
Sure.
disaster. And we were
Oh,
in these
no.
hanging kind of sheet
Yes.
things and I was all twisted up and falling out. Why aerial yoga?
Oh, definitely. I love this. So I will say yoga is a part of my life because it's something I connect with. Within the Ayurvedic practice, we go through the six pillars. So it is the nutrition, it's the sleep, it's the mindfulness, and it's the movement is one of them as well. And that movement is such a beautiful thing. And that movement looks like walking to me. And I know we talked about that before, but also yoga for me. Yoga was such a practice that I have come to at so many different points within my life. It'd be pre 20s, 20s, 30s, and it's been my release, something. And it typically was at a point where I needed something. I needed a release. I needed something to help me ground. And for me, that's where I went. I've also done other workouts and I've always been very active, but it resonated and there were such similarities through mindfulness and living and yoga. It could just be that practice, but it's also a practice of life. And I don't think a lot of people realize that because as it moves, to the West, it was much more of just an exercise practice versus the actual background with what yoga really is, and it's a state of being and a state of living, and that really resonated with me. I have two things that I like to live my life by, and others, but it's leave people better than you found them and leave a world better than you found it. And that's a
Mhm.
practice
Love
of
it.
mine. It's a practice. We're human. We're always going to try again tomorrow and do things. And some days are better than others. And I understand that. But yoga for me really had a lot of similarities with that. So I got into it amongst all other things. Then I completed my yoga teacher training. And it was simply for my own deepening of practice. But now I can't not teach. So I'm getting into that, and we were gifted an aerial class similar to you for free. And I went to this aerial class, and I also am a student of life like you, and I'm constantly learning, but I also challenge people to have more fun. And what that means for me, being a parent and having small kids, I found that I was told to grow up um, at a certain point in my life, and that meant not having as much fun. And I questioned that quite a bit. And then I have my beautiful children, and I signed them up for things like this summer, it was surfing. And I'm sitting on the beach watching them. And I was like, well, since when can I not go have fun too? And the next lesson, I was out there with them taking surf lessons.
Great.
And I was like, this is ridiculous. I don't know when you people tell us the whole Peter Pan thing, we can still have fun as adults.
Mhm.
So I went to this aerial class, and I have not felt so liberated and free in my entire life, where I was a child almost. And as an adult, I had that childlike quality feeling and interaction with it that I can't even explain to you, where I was so incredibly I felt so present as I did when I was younger, and I didn't know any different. I wasn't concerned about the past, and I wasn't worried about the future. It's moments of that present awareness that are such an incredible gift. And that's what I find in aerial, because to your point, you've got to watch what you're doing. You are in a hammock and you're up off the air, and you will get tangled. I was in class this weekend trying something new, and I was stuck. I was legitimately stuck in my hammock, and I was like, well, that won't be something I necessarily teach if I can't get out of it. And I think everybody has that. It doesn't necessarily have to be aerial yoga, but I loved it so much that I went, and I've completed my teacher training now. It's just I have 11 more hours that I need, and then I'll offer that to whomever would like to try. But it's what is that for you? Is it taking a painting class? Is it going and picking up a music instrument again, taking the drumming lessons you never took that you love so much? Going and taking, whatever that is, I encourage you so much. Go, 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 go. Nobody said that we have to stop having fun at a certain age. And I'll tell you, when you do it, it's just contagious, and the people around you are like, I'm going to do that too, and they go out and start doing something. And what a gift. You're giving everybody else the ability to go say, well, I'm going to have that too. And I'll tell you what, go bring somebody you love and care about with you, because there's no greater gift than to just be and relax and enjoy and laugh and forget about everything else than with somebody you love and having a present mindful moment with them.
Mm. I think it's so important to mention that I feel like in our current society and Western society, we have lost that. We've lost that ability to be in the moment. And that is what's so beautiful about yoga, because if you're holding a pose,
Yes.
you really can't be thinking about your
Right.
shopping list, or you're going to fall over doing bow or whatever you're trying to do and keep your balance. You're keeping your balance. You're doing a lot of one-legged things. You're up
Right.
and down off the floor. And I imagine aerial
Yes.
requires even more. I think my issue with it is I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I was
Mhm.
trying to like take control of it too much and not going with the moment. So I love how you describe it in a playful way, because that's definitely missing for us.
It is.
Now, when you're working with clients,
Mhm.
what is the typical what typically are they coming to you for? What, because I know typically with mine it's a lot of post menopausal weight gain, hormone imbalance, things such as that.
Absolutely. So I go through the Ayurvedic practice where we go through the 6 pillars of health. We meet one on one and we start to dive into it, and they get more information about it. We do their dosha profiling, so they get to know their dosha profile. We go deeper into that, and we walk through what that means for them. How do we truly balance your life and create that balanced lifestyle with a structure around it from an Ayurvedic lifestyle practice? But we go through such things that are not foreign to anybody. They're going to know all of these. So it is the nutrition, it is the sleep, right? Which is so incredibly important. We really, as a society, struggle with getting enough quality sleep. to really be able to take care of ourselves. But then we talk about the dreaded meditation, and I know that's scary for a lot of people, but I tell you, we can break it down, and it's really simple and it's really easy, and anybody can do it, and it doesn't look like you just sitting cross-legged in the middle of the floor not moving. If I told you to watch Netflix, and I heard this somewhere else, so I can't take this, but I thought it was beautiful. But if somebody told you to sit there and watch Netflix or your show or whatever it is, or read a book rigid, sitting up straight with your legs crossed, you wouldn't be able to do it. So I'm not going to ask you to go meditate like that. But what I like to practice is just as you said, it's moments of mindfulness. It's so incredibly beneficial to you to be able to sit with yourself in stillness for little periods of time, to be mindful. But what we do along with that is talk about emotional needs and emotional well-being, right? So we definitely get into that. We talk about the movement too, and we pull all of those things together. And it really just paints this beautiful picture of me guiding you with things that you already know, and incorporating and finding ways to incorporate them back in your life so you can thrive. You really can, because you're loving yourself, right? With that self care, which is another one that's not selfish. And it should not be done once a week, once a month, once a year. Absolutely not. This needs to be done every day. And it can look totally different. It can look like 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours, and it can work for everybody. But it's so incredibly important, because what we don't understand as much as we should is that the best way to be there for the people that we love is to embody the things that we wish they would do as well, because it feels so good. And that means taking care of yourself, right? If you don't take care of yourself and you don't make yourself strong, how can you be strong for the people around them and show up for them? And that is infectious, it's contagious, and you allow people to do the same. So that's really what we do with the one-on-one coaching. I do breakthrough coaching, business coaching, and then I do a breakdown meditation foundation. So we just go through and I help you build your practice. And I love that. It's incredible. I could talk about that all day. I think I'm on a year and a half straight of meditation practice at least
Mm.
once a day. And it's not that I have to say, oh, I got to get to my meditation. It's like, okay, can I go steal 10 minutes right now? And then I'll have scheduled out time too. So
Yeah, I think that's important. You make a good point here about it doesn't have to be this long drawn out thing. It can be
oh,
in the moment. I know I've had to stop myself when I'm stressing out. I
mhm,
tend to be an anxious person, and if I get too much on my plate,
right,
too much on my to-do list, I start spinning out, and
right.
it's counterproductive, and then nothing gets done. And just taking a moment to even take a deep breath in and
Mhm.
out and ground yourself. I was telling you how I just took off to a yoga class last night because I
Yes.
realized I am way too stressed right now
Right.
and nothing's getting done. So I love that you make it attainable for
Yes.
people. They don't have to necessarily do an app or spend 30
No,
minutes, and it can just
I don't
be.
want to be on my phone. I don't, I don't want to
I
be on my
know.
phone. I have a real, we talked about connecting deeper. We talked about it. We are still in a pandemic. We still very much are post-pandemic, is that we're not connecting in deeper relationships like we said. So anytime you do not have to download an app. We're not listening to anything on a daily basis. We're not logging anything. It's come human with me. That's what it
Right,
is. Come human
right.
with me. We're all just walking this, human experience together, and we're all just, really walking each other home. So it's like I found this and I've incorporated it into my life, and it feels too good not to share. And trust me, with the days that I have and the things that I've added on and do, if I can do it, you can do it too. We can find that time together, because we can eliminate some of the stuff that's just not adding value to your life, right? If that's the scrolling, or that's the moments where you are sitting there and you're saying, I'm so overwhelmed right now. What can I do? Right? Those are the moments I want to talk about and figure out what we are doing, because those are the moments I still practice a lot of these practices myself daily. What can I take off my plate for next week? Because it doesn't serve me to be so overloaded, because then am I really showing up to any of these things as my best version of myself? Am I really showing up to my relationships as the best version of myself if I'm not caring for myself properly? So that's what we break down in a very gentle, beautiful way, right? Because life proves we'll talk for an hour and then you go back out to life, and so do I. So I want you to have a little bit of a cushion. So you're like, no, I've got tools now. I've got tools. I can go life a little bit till I meet Tessa again, and then we'll talk.
I know. I was driving home from yoga. I just thought of this as you were talking and left the studio in this kind of this,
Yes.
I don't know, I guess you could call it a Zen state, and then get into rush hour traffic. And I'm like, you know,
You're like, oh, where did it go? I lost
where did it go? My bubble I was in, it's gone. So
Right. And it's such an elation. You said it perfectly. That's life. But then you get home and before you go to bed, you pop into one of our breathing exercises. So I like a 4, 4, 6, 8, 4, 7, 8, which is
Mhm.
an
Yeah,
inhale for 4, hold for 7, and then exhale for 8, which automatically takes you from your sympathetic to your parasympathetic nervous system. And when I tell you it doesn't relax your whole body after doing that, 5, 6, 10 minutes, it's incredible. I do it all the time. And then sometimes it still doesn't, I don't feel as calm as I'd like to. And then I go out and take a walk. But it's those kind of things that are available to you and don't cost you a thing. It's just a reminder of those tools. That's a gift. So,
yeah. Breath, things as
yes,
simple
yes,
as breath,
yes,
water, movement,
yes,
all of these simple things. It
yes.
doesn't have to be complicated.
No.
Now, as a mom, what difference has this made for
Oh,
your
goodness.
kids? How old are your kids, first of all, and what difference has your health practice made in their lives?
Oh, it's there's no words. And that was part of it. So you're reading all these books, how to be the best parent, how to do this, because there's no guide. We do
Hmm.
this and we go into it and we're all trying our best here, and we have to be gracious with each other, especially ourselves. And they're 10 and 9, and my daughter's 10 and my son's 9. They're 18 months apart. And we sat there, and when I started my yoga practice, really got back into it and started the training, I'll never forget, we're sitting at the table having dinner, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just sitting there, and I don't even couldn't even tell you that I was thinking about anything. I was just having a moment. My daughter looks at me and she goes, "Mom, you're so." She goes, "Is it the yoga? I love it." And I was like,
Oh,
oh, I was like, "Yes, I am." Oh. And that exhale, I was like, that was the most beautiful expression of this feeling, because you emanate this energy into your environment. And what a gift to emanate peacefulness. We could spend an hour talking about that peacefulness that we are all working to cultivate within us. And that is what you get from working through this lifestyle and really breaking it down. It's the gift of not walking away with a certificate. I completed the 6 pillars of health, or I've done 20 days of meditation and here's my pat on the back. No, it's a peacefulness that you find inside you. Forget about the happiness, forget about the love, forget about any of those. Those are all offshoots of it. But it's a peacefulness that we all really are truly striving for. It is. And when you start to do things that start to develop that within you, right? So it's not object referral. You're not looking outside of you for things to give you that. It's self referral, and you build that in yourself. It can never be taken away from you. It can't. You're resilient. You have that gift within you. You do the practices to continue to harvest it, right? So it becomes more and more. And the people around you feel it, and my kids felt it. And it's not to say that I don't have my moments where something happens, I have a human moment, and I have to go apologize. Mom's going to go put herself in timeout for 10 minutes, and I don't even say timeout. I'm taking space. I say them all the time. Do you need to go take space? Do we just need some space to ourselves in this, or go have a moment upstairs, go breathe? And it's almost a gift. I'm like, what, go take 5, because I'm going to go take 5 in my room, and then we're come all together. They see me meditate. They see me take time for myself. Some days I'm better than others, but I show them that because I want them to be able to do the same. And we talk about the healthy emotions. And again, I want everybody to stay on the phone. Come to my house and you will see that it's not all perfect. Sometimes it's chaotic and it's creative and it's colorful and yada yada. And we have our moments because we are parents and we are guiding them and ourselves. Um, but it's been incredible. When I started to really work on myself, there were dynamic shifts in my relationships, and that includes the people who are closest to me, like my children, like my family. Um, I have a wonderful, relationship with a partner now, so that's come into play, and it's been a long time, since my divorce and losing my ex-husband, and I have now, when I start to put this out into the universe, this is what comes back. And I'm very thankful for it. And I'm excited to put more out to other people and just to continue to give it away as much as I can.
yeah, those children are always watching. And they're
Yes, they
watching when we
are.
don't know. And we really find out when they're adults. And I'm finding that 'cause my kids are adults and they'll refer back to things that I didn't even think I didn't even think they were paying attention, but
Right.
they are. They're taking it in. Like my emphasis on nutrition, I'm like, oh, these
Mm.
kids are, they could care less about this. But that's starting to come back where my oldest daughter now has a nutritious meal prep company and she
I
prepares
love
meals, delivers them, and she did all this, on her own. But I feel like my husband and I really helped to plant those seeds,
it.
and she was watching the meals we prepared and how we were. So that's so important. And then I love, you've said this a few times, you can't show up for the other
Mm.
people in your life in the way you need to if you don't take care of yourself.
Right.
And I think that's something lost in some women, especially from, I'd say, 45, well,
Yes.
40 to 50, right in there, especially. They are taking care of aging parents, they're taking care of little kids, and they don't take care of themselves.
Yes, and they use the word selfish. I have a lot of clients and people in my life that say, "Son," I said, "you need to stop that right now." It
Mm-hmm.
is not selfish because, one, you're teaching people around you that it's okay to take care of themselves too. And two, how are you showing you were working so hard to show up for all these people and be all of these things. But how are you showing up when you get there when you're exhausted? When you're feeling defeated, when you're feeling like there's something missing, when you're feeling any certain way that's not in tune with you and balanced. And I would challenge them, go do something for yourself before you go and pick up your parent or go to the house or help your spouse or your partner or go do something for the kids. Go do something for you and see the difference when you start to show up for them because they're going to see it in you maybe even before you do. But I challenge you, the way that you show up after you've done something for yourself and cared for yourself is going to be so much different that you're going to be like, I can't let this go. And don't. The most important promises that we will keep in our lives are the promises we make to ourselves. And it is so they're the first ones we let go. Why is that? We are the most important people in our lives. We should be. We are the ones who are finishing this journey with. We are the ones we see in the mirror. We're the bodies that we're holding all around us. Why do we feel the need to we give out all of this love, but we've got to keep a little bit for ourselves too. And we do that through keeping the promises. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're making yourself a promise, allow it to be something that you can commit to, right? Start small, but then keep that promise and then see how you show up to the people you love.
Yes, breaking our inner word, I think, is
Mm,
is one of the hardest things.
really?
It can really do a lot of damage to our self-esteem. Because
Yes.
then, how does that feel to say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and then we break our own word to
Mm,
ourselves? And that's self-defeating. I think part of that is women will jump out and say, I'm going to go to yoga every day and
mhm.
run and go to the gym and eat healthy and drink a gallon of water. And then,
Well, good luck because I can't do that. I'm like, so please tell me how you do that.
yeah, but I see that happen a lot. So
Yes.
then when they can't check all the boxes,
Right.
then it's like, well, I'll just throw it all out.
Start with one. Let's do one thing and then next week add something else, but build on it. We because we are super women, because we truly are. We are incredible. Men and women and human beings are just some of the most incredible people. And I women are so much they're just such, embodiments of strength, but strength and emotion and strength and empathy. Our empathetic ability to connect with other people is such a gift to us, and the intuitive nature that we can tap into so regularly. And this has been studied scientifically. So I don't, men have their own superpowers too. I'm not saying anything against them, but I am saying we have some beautiful gifts here. But those gifts also need to be on us too. We need to tap into those and those promises that we keep. Please make sure that they're attainable and be gracious with yourself, right? So allow yourself that ability. And some days that looks like, and I did this just earlier. I said, what can I move off my plate tomorrow? It's too much. I said, I need some downtime or I need to go do
Hmm.
something.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then also, I'll say this, and I say it so loudly, and I work with this with my clients too. Boundaries are so important. The boundaries and the promises that you keep are the most important ones. And those are also gifts to the people around you, especially your children. When they see you holding boundaries for things that feel good to you and things that don't, and using the word no, which is a complete sentence,
Hmm.
that's a beautiful gift. You are showing other people that they can do the same thing. The young children that you're raising, your spouses, your best friends, say, no, that didn't serve me today. That's not something that I could do because I need to go work out or I need to go meal prep because that's what I need right now. Feels really good. And you believe it or not, people understand that Barry Shores is a friend of mine, and he has a beautiful expression. He says no, but he adds in the K at the beginning and the W at the end. And it's knowledge and wisdom. No.
Mm.
Knowledge that you need to say no, the wisdom to say it and to share that with others. And that's such, it's a gift.
Ooh, that is
Yeah.
good. I like that. I'm going to have to write that down and use that.
Great.
So good. But you're right about the boundaries. It's the boundaries we set with ourselves, with other people. That took me a long time to get. I
Yes.
had very fuzzy boundaries for a
Yes.
long time and would say yes to things I didn't want to say yes
Right.
to. And then when I would say no, I felt like I had to give this long,
Yes.
well, I have a doctor's appointment and the kids, I wouldn't let it just, and I've had to learn to say, no, I can't do that time
Right.
or whatever it is, and let that just
Be.
rest and be.
Yes. And it's a beautiful thing. What is so wrong with that? We've created the stigma around it where we overextend ourselves so much and then we're exhausted and we don't realize why. And it's because we don't have those in place to really take care of ourselves. And you're not alone. Many, many people, myself included, have worked very hard and it is a practice. Life, we have the dental office, which is a practice. We have the attorneys, the practice of law. We have doctors, practice of medicine. It is life is a practice. We are practicing being human to the best of our ability and we're continuing to grow. So I would also just say as one last thing, it's you're going to hear all these and you're going to put all these things in motion. You will stumble. You will falter. There's going to be days where it just doesn't work out that way. And that's where you practice gratitude for the things that did work out, but most
Mhm.
importantly for yourself. And the fact that you can wake up tomorrow and go again. And two, go again and give it your best.
Yes, that gratitude. I love that you said that. So important. We were talking about the differences between men and women. Now, do
Yes.
you have many male clients? Do you work with both men and women?
I do. I do work with both men and women because it's the same. The six pillars are going to be the same for both, and men need balance in their lives just as much as women do. And maybe sometimes you'll fall into some of the pillars that really resonate a little differently with men and women. So sometimes it's the sleep. You'd be surprised. It's just that quality of sleep and getting sleep and going to bed at a certain time. Sometimes it's the meditation. So they'll just be like, no, I'm not going to sit still for that long. But that happens with both men and women. And sometimes it's the emotional needs, it's the sense of expression, understanding emotions and thoughts. So emotions are thoughts in motion, right? You are not
Mhm.
defined by your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And understanding fundamentally the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and what thoughts are through neuroplasticity, you can change your brain. It's a really incredible process that you can get into to remapping and rewiring neurons so you can have better thoughts, leave behind preconceived notions based on maybe past trauma or history. But I'll tell you, expressiveness. And I can't truly say, yes, I see dynamics and difference between men and women, but I can't make a blanket statement
Mhm.
that it's one particular pillar than the other. I think it just depends on the person because they all resonate with us so much. But it's a beautiful thing when we can balance in all six of them, because the way that I like to put it as we start to human, it's a very beautiful experience for us.
Now, you talked about neuroplasticity.
Yes.
Plasticity. I can never get that out of my mouth. It's like say that 10 times really fast. Do
Yeah.
you want to explain just briefly to the listener what that means and how is it achieved?
Absolutely. So I love this. This is my curiosity really showing itself. I got into just studying and learning about it on my own because I was so profoundly interested in it. We only typically use 10% of our brains. That
Mhm.
and stuff. I was like, well, forget that. I'm going to use 20 or maybe shoot for 12. We'll see what happens. I said, but how do I do this? So then I started to really look into the brain itself and how it works and how thoughts and energy and emotions work. And some of that's through the Ayurvedic practice, through the emotional well being and needs. But I started to dive a little deeper in my own journey and growth to understanding what thoughts were and also in meditation. So if you think about thoughts tracking through your brain and you think about your brain almost as a computer, right? Or you think about your brain as the sky. Thoughts are just clouds in the sky. You are the sky. You are not defined by these little clouds. They pass. Sometimes they're stormy, sometimes they're big and beautiful and white, but they continuously pass by. What's in between them is space or gaps. And that's where we fall into mindfulness. it's not the lack of clouds in the sky. It's not the lack of programs on the computer, right? It's the in between that we get into. People are like, I can't quiet my mind. Well, no, you can't. It's impossible. You can't. You're not going to go without thoughts, but what you're going to do is fall into the gap in between thoughts, and that period's going to extend. And then a thought's going to creep in. And what you can say is you're suddenly going to fall into the next one. So with neuroplasticity, you really start to engage with your thoughts. You see your thoughts, you feel your emotions, but you decide, where am I coming from? Am I coming from a place of preconceived notions based on what I could have been told, past trauma, old stories that I recite, or am I making a new thought pattern? Right. And sometimes that can be done with positive affirmations. That can be done with challenging that, accepting it for what it is, but then writing a new script. And we can do that. And that's the growth and the expansion through neuroplasticity, right? So that's the really getting into your brain, retraining your brain in such a way that you are creating those thoughts and patterns that you wish to have based on what you're telling yourself. And it's as true as that. A lot of times this can be achieved through gratitude, right? So if you are in a place of just the train has left the station of thoughts and you are just on this negative sort of trail of thoughts that are coming in, questioning, doubting, feeling a certain way. Well, yes, we need to look at where those are coming from, and we do a lot of work around that. But then also you have the ability to say this. You say, thank you. I see all of those concerns. I see them, but I can do this and it's going to be fine. And you continue to do that. And that's so simple. I'm not in the mirror saying all of these things. I'm a rock star, I'm beautiful, I'm superpowers and all this, because am I believing that? No, probably not at that stage, because I'm having this string of negative thoughts come in. So I need to say something gently. I need to accept those thoughts for what they are, but then say, but that's not the truth. I am perfectly fine and I'm going to be fine. Right. And then we can extend that conversation for whatever that looks like for you. I would be lying if I didn't say in all the things that I do and the businesses that I've launched or the trainings that I've taken or even being a parent that I don't have doubts that creep in, or even in relationship. They do. They do all the time. And I recognize them and I say, thank you, but I've got this. And even if I don't, it's going to be okay. I'm going to go. I'm going to go for it. And it's those sort of things that you really are getting to the neuroplasticity and refiring those connections of the neurons where they're connecting to other synapse, the synapse, and they're retraining your brain to think in a certain way that's working for you. And the more you do that, the easier it's going to be, right? So the ego is always going to come from a place of fear. It is. It's a protective mechanism. It's our survival mode, right? It's what tells us to run, we're being chased. It's like, run, this is terrifying. Or when we get scared, or when something's coming on, or that doubt creeps in. Well, in the past, this hasn't worked out for you. So let's say you're getting into a new relationship, but you've had some in the past that just didn't work out. You've done some work, you've reflected, you know how you want to show up in these relationships, and you're ready to embark in one. Somebody comes along and they're great. And you're like, well, whoa, no, I can't do that. I need to shut this down. That's too scary. I've been hurt in the past. That's where the ego is going to come in. And listen, absolutely listen to it, but know why it's showing up like that and understand it. Then you have your intuition. That's your core. That's your gut feeling. That feeling is never wrong. What a gift. Our intuition is never wrong. Do we always listen to it? No, we don't. And that's fine. That's part of the human experience. I do that as much as anybody else, but I really do try and tap into it and understand, where's this feeling coming from? Am I really anxious and edgy? And is it telling me, no, when truly in my gut, I know I want to lean into this? Well, what am I listening to? And that's all tied into the neuroplasticity, really. It's understanding where the thoughts are coming from, the emotions are coming from. Not trying to damper them, not trying to stuff them down, not trying to fundamentally change them. Change the script at the end. Write a new story. And that's how you refire those neurons.
That's important, what you just said, for refiring those neurons,
Right.
those narratives. Because
Yes.
I found I had a couple of very negative ones that stemmed
Yes.
all the way back from childhood. I
Yes.
wasn't even conscious
Yep.
that I was saying this narrative to myself for decades. Once I
Mhm.
got to one of the main ones, which I won't go into all the details on it,
Right.
but I got to one of the main false narratives in my life. It led to my awareness in other areas. And now when I can catch myself doing it and going, is that really true? Or is that just some story you're telling yourself that's looping around in your brain over and over again?
Right. And I'll tell you, one of the most courageous things that anybody can ever do is work on themselves. It really is. Because you, as you just mentioned right there, that thought pattern, that narrative is coming from somewhere. And to get down into it and to do the work to peel back the layers when you're prepared to and you're ready to see it is incredible. Because I'll tell you what, the changes that you can make when you go all the way down to the past and say, that's why, because in early childhood, this is what I was dealing with then, and I didn't feel seen, or I didn't feel heard, or I didn't feel safe expressing my emotions. There's a whole thing that can show up with. And what we don't understand is something verbal abuse in early childhood can sometimes show up as people pleasing later in life.
Hmm.
So there's correlations. And I would recommend, obviously I'm not a psychiatrist or a medical doctor, but we say that in the Ayurvedic practice. But an accompaniment to that is when you start to do that work and you start to work with others to heal things that you didn't even realize that's you're showing in a relationship like this, and you keep getting into these relationships and they're just not working for you, and you wonder why you're attracted to the narcissist, or you wonder why you can't show up in the relationships the way you want. You struggle so hard to do that. And you're like, why is XYZ always happening to me? And I'll tell you, when we dig a little deeper and we get a little bit deeper, we can understand that going back to early childhood, because that's your formative years. They say 1 to 7, but it's actually been extended. It's usually 1 to 14, right? Where we have this, or even at birth all the way up, where you have this incredible growth and development. But that's where you're making your assumptions in the narratives about relationships, emotional safety, emotional well being, and the stories you tell yourself. So when you go all the way back there and you start to uncover that, then you can really show up in the ways that you want to and not carry that with you. It's great.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And you've hit too on, it's not perfection. You have your days where, stuff creeps in.
Yes.
And, talking about these narratives, I have my times where I'll dive right back down the rabbit hole. But the difference is you catch yourself quicker and you go,
Yes.
whoa, whoa, brakes on.
You're like, I'm not going there again, remember?
We're
And
not
you
going there. And you're able to pull yourself out quicker.
yes,
And so,
you are.
yeah, so good.
It's
Well,
that
Tess, I
peacefulness.
want to, yes, it is. It's that inner peace, that inner peace. Tess, I want to be respectful of your time. And as we start to wrap up, a couple different things. Was there something that I didn't ask or that we didn't touch on you'd like to share? And then how can the listeners order your product, get in touch with you, work with you?
Absolutely. No, I think we covered so much, which was
We did.
beautiful. Topics I didn't even know we'd get into, but it's such a gift, and they're all intertangled. We are complicated creatures. I would just say that. And you said it. I think how I'd end it was just gratitude for ourselves, gratitude for the what we're doing here in this experience, and just knowing that you're doing a great job. We all are. We have all the strength, we have all the love, we have all the courage that we need innately inside of us, and we can tap into it. We really can. We don't need to look outside of ourselves for that. And when we tap into it, then we can give that freely to others. So it's a beautiful thing, and I do hope those listening, know that. And then I'd say to get in touch with me, absolutely. So I'm at snapbackenergy.com is our website for Snapback supplement and all things Snapback. And then balanceofyou.com is my Ayurvedic practice. So you can go on there, look if you are curious about the doshas. I have a ton of information, a lot of beautiful case studies, and you can actually grab your quiz and take that online, and we can do consultation or one-on-one sessions. And then you can find me at it's Snapback Energy, that's my handle, I think, on social media, and then Balance of You Co, and then Tessa, I think it's underscore Elizabeth1, but I'm tied into all of those. Reach out. I love to talk, obviously, and connect, and yeah, come human with me. So it's great. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Tessa. This has been such a pleasure. I'm going to make sure that all of your information is in the show notes so the listeners can reach out, follow your work, and get in touch with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.